Welcome to BladeStack session Advisory to Accelerator, Navigating FedRAMP's Varied Paths to Compliance. I'm Kris Martel, Chief Security Officer here at bladestack.io, and also presenting with me is Bhanu Jagasia, the Chief Technology Officer, and Keifer, Blandon, and Daimyo. First, I want to start off by saying all the content we will be presenting today is based off of past experience and knowledge gained over the years as FedRAMP advisors in this industry. So you, as a cloud service provider, have made a decision to pursue FedRAMP. Now what? Where do you begin? Like every other time you don't know the answers, you likely turn to Google. Depending on your FedRAMP knowledge level, you may do some specific searches, or you just may Google FedRAMP. Regardless of the search, you'll get a lot of information that will invariably lead you back to the FedRAMP.gov website. So we'll delve deeper into the chaos of the FedRAMP searches with Keifer in just a bit, but back to the FedRAMP website, you will find a plethora of information and resources from guides and templates and training and much more. Even this one-stop shop of information can be overwhelming. Eventually, though, everyone makes it to the FedRAMP marketplace and starts to scour through the three PAOs. Well, why not, right? They're supposed to be the experts in FedRAMP world. The answer is, well, it depends. It depends on what you're looking for. Indeed, a 3PAO is needed to perform a FedRAMP assessment. There's no way around that. So you're in the right place there. But it doesn't mean that they are well equipped to be an effective advisor. In fact, a 3PAO cannot advise and assess the same client. There are some key differences between FedRAMP advisors and FedRAMP assessors, and Bhanu will be speaking about that and what makes a good attributes of a good advisor shortly. I want to touch on some common themes that you will hear Bhanu and Keifer talk about, and that is honing in on specific focus area or mastery and becoming the best that there is in that focus area. When you are an assessment firm and an advisory firm, the mastery and focus of one or both the practices can often take a hit. This is not guaranteed, but there is an old saying that goes, a jack of all trades is a master of none. So SchellmanCON's a great example of focusing on becoming a master of FedRAMP assessments. SchellmanCON clearly states on their website that they assess only and do not advise. Like SchellmanCON, BladeStack is chosen to master in advisory, and we do not perform any assessments. So each of us are focusing on mastering our skills in our blades. The last thing I want to touch on before handing it over to Bhanu is understanding compliance guidance versus compliance advisory. Compliance guidance is what most advisors provide as an advisory service. The guidance provides guardrails, but limited in actual advisory on how to best accomplish a FedRAMP compliance. Compliance advisory, on the other hand, focuses on the details, providing the nuanced guidance down to configurations, architecture, and engineering strategies, tech stack selection and implementation guidance, for example. Bhanu will provide some more examples and better define what makes a good advisor. So now over to you, Bhanu.
Thank you, Kris, for shedding light on the profound difference focus can make. SchellmanCON's expertise in assessments is indeed a testament on how honing in on one discipline can lead to mastery. Let's dive into these insightful talking points. As you mentioned, Kris, based off my years of experience in both the engineering, consultation, and the FedRAMP space, we've seen a number of advisory firms, we'll call them typical advisors, and then there are what we believe to be true advisors. I'll be going into some examples on how to actually delineate between the two. So now imagine you're venturing into a realm of container orchestration. A typical advisor might just drop the word Kubernetes and kind of just leave it at that. On the flip side, a proficient advisor dives in, guiding you on securely managing Kubernetes secrets, implementing role-based access control, RBAC, and harnessing encrypted etcd databases to safeguard sensitive data, and actually walking you through the implementation of those components. The journey goes beyond just the surface. While a typical advisor might suggest a generic code scan, a more proficient one would navigate you through employing OWASP top 10 guidelines, harnessing parameterized queries to thwart SQL injections, implementing content security policies to mitigate cross-site scripting risks. They will actually delve into the intricacies of preserving transaction integrity within a fan-out event architecture, spanning across multiple microservices on Kubernetes and EC2 instances. Again, just examples, but it's about delving deep into the matrix of technical challenges. So we come to security. Security integration is art and science. While a typical advisor might hint at integrating security checks, a more proficient one not only recommends tools tailored to your system design, but aids in weaving these security scanning tools within the CI/CD pipeline, catching and addressing security issues at the start. While security integration being an art and science, on the flip side, configuration consistency is a journey. A typical advisor might mention it in passing, but a more proficient advisor will recommend tools like Ansible or Puppet, or actual tools which match up with your architecture. They'll collaborate with your team, your development teams, to ensure a harmonized configuration landscape across all environments, dev, test, and prod, and what have you. So security architectural transitions are pivotal. A typical advisor might vaguely hint at it. However, a more proficient advisor articulates the transition to a microservices architecture, showcasing how it augments data isolation, auditability, and security through fine-grained IAM policies or roles. Just like dance between MFA, single sign-on, and NEST 863B is intricate, a typical advisor might toss around acronyms like MFA and SSO, but a more proficient advisor explains how these measures align with NEST 863B, streamlined access management, and customized federation to enhance user experience, a blend of security and practicality. And so we come to documentation. We all know documentation is the roadmap to comprehension. Unlike a typical advisor who might hand over generic templates, a proficient advisor will tailor documentation, mapping out your entire system design and architecture to meet FedRAMP requirements, ensuring it's a useful compass for your architects, and most importantly, accurately mirroring your organization's operations. So let's face it, cybersecurity is a vast ocean. As you may have guessed the theme, a typical advisor will typically provide generic responses, but a more proficient advisor will work relentlessly, not as a member of their organization, but a member of your team, a member of your organization, ensuring a well-rounded approach to security and compliance. Not to mention, doesn't shy away from any technical challenges which may arise. The right advisor is your compass in the cloud-native realm, navigating through the nuances of container orchestration, serverless computing, and associated security and compliance challenges, ensuring a successful FedRAMP compliance journey. Unlike a typical advisor who might just skim the surface, the right advisor dives deep into these crucial aspects, steering you towards a secure and compliant harbor. Back to you, Chris.
Thank you, Bhanu, for those detailed examples. I know that's just a few, and you have a whole bunch more that you could probably talk about, but we're limited on time, so thank you. The major takeaways I see from this is that any CSP looking for an advisor, they should expect no less than true advisory and not accept anything that you described as a typical advisor. I know here at BladeStack, we are not a template or document shop, or we don't throw tech writers or non-technical people at a project. The knowledge and always learning everyday mentality is critical to support those great advisor cultures. Now I want to pivot back to a topic I mentioned earlier. When you started a FedRAMP journey, you were likely flooded with a wealth of information on those Google searches that we talked about. In fact, a lot of information is conflicting and simply adds to the confusion. A lot of glory and attention is presented on just getting that coveted FedRAMP ATO. As they should, it's a huge milestone, but that's not the end of it. There are numerous accelerator solutions and MSPs out there focusing on getting you prepared through the FedRAMP assessment, but what happens afterwards? Keifer's going to talk about the accelerator program and life after the ATO. Keifer, all yours.
Thank you, Chris. So as Chris touched on a little bit earlier, when you Google FedRAMP, you're going to be greeted with that two-phase response. First, you're going to see that FedRAMP.gov that's going to get you introduced to the what's and whys of FedRAMP. And then right after that, you're going to see a bombardment of the hows. So that's the companies and the proposals that are going to get you that coveted authorization as fast as possible. And a lot of bonus points are going to be there if you see the word accelerator. Everyone operates off the same template for building and deploying infrastructure from AWS to Azure to Alibaba, and they all promise the same thing: get you to ATO as fast as possible. And the name of the game is always automation. So with any FedRAMP ATO journey, those of us in the industry have seen the same pain points time and time again. They can comfortably be grouped into really two categories. You have your pre-audit and your post-audit. And I think this is a key point to touch on, because rather than just focusing on getting the client through audit, what sets BladeRAMP apart is that we focus on solving the pain points beyond the audit as well, alleviating the pain across the entire gamut of the ATO pursuit. So we'll start with pre-audit. In pre-audit, this is where you see a typical build phase, and it's consistent across MSPs these days, and they all attempt to accomplish the same thing. Typically, it's infrastructure as code, almost always going to be Terraform. It stamps out an AWS or Azure environment and hosts or integrates with the client application. So some companies focus on the extensive client customization, sacrificing that automation for a handcrafted approach, and attempting to play the field for every customer. And as we alluded to before, that's a jack of all trades, master of none approach. And then what ends up is their tech stacks are often bloated and backed by understaffed engineering teams who are expected to be subject matter experts in every flavor of the month. Others, by contrast, lean into the standardizing tech stacks, which focus more on that automation piece and also provide the most efficient authorization process possible. So BladeRAMP is certainly in that more latter camp, with a clean, concise tech stack and a lean, focused engineering team that makes BladeRAMP highly efficient at that integration process. So we focus on using the best tooling that in itself helps to facilitate that integration, instead of relying on the flexibility of our engineering bandwidth. So let's move to that post-audit. So post-audit is where the rubber really meets the road, as the saying goes, and you can really delineate between a minimum viable product and a truly mature solution. Continuous monitoring, or CONMON as it's often referred to, is arguably the hottest topic in FedRAMP on a consistent basis, and it seems to be for the same reasons. Across the board, you see questions about how do we handle CONMON, because at the end of the day, the focus was getting the client to and through audit and not maintain the authorization once that audit was achieved. So once that authorization is achieved, the client's left on their own to figure out what to do for CONMON. BladeRAMP changes that focus. Our automation extends to that long-term upkeep with our suite of automation focused on POEM generation, change management and control, vulnerability remediation, et cetera, et cetera. We consistently focus on being experts in our domain, and our domain is advisory. Because advisory, unlike assessment, doesn't end at the award of authorization. It's an ongoing, or shall we say continuous, endeavor to ensure that continued compliance. So when the annual assessment comes back around, as it will every year, we won't be scrambling to make that environment ready again, because it's always going to be ready. So in the words of the late, great Coach Pop Warner, we play like we practice. Back to you, Chris.
Thanks, Keifer. Great job helping to break down the most important and key points to consider when looking for advisors and MSP FedRAMP Accelerator options. This may sound harsh, but the reality is being a good assessor doesn't always make a good advisor. Just like being a good driver doesn't necessarily make you a great mechanic. As we all mentioned throughout this presentation, it's imperative to be a master of your craft. Like Schellman is a master of his 3PO assessor role, is a truly great advisor will be only focused on advisory, plain and simple. FedRAMP is the gold standard for cloud security. No questions, no doubts. It's also very nuanced, and while there is a lot of information available to research and read about, implementing and documenting FedRAMP is no small task. Achieving an ATO is time-consuming. It may be time-consuming, it is time-consuming. And it does take a significant effort to achieve that FedRAMP ATO, regardless of what path you go down and what you may see on the internet or hear. FedRAMP is not cheap, but it can be affordable if you have the right advisor. FedRAMP doesn't have to break the bank if implemented correctly. Finally, as Keifer demonstrated, not all advisors and ATO accelerators are equal either. BladeStack is a 100% focused FedRAMP advisory firm. No assessments ever. If you'd like to learn more, come visit us at our booth here at SchellmanCON to learn more, or for a one-on-one with a team of experts. Thank you.